Ladies and gentlemen, it's the Shawn Mackey Show. He's so unpredictable. Mother Nature calls him for advice. Season number 2, episode 16 of the Shawn Mackey Show. Today, we recap the Bears versus the Vikings. Holy shitballs, Batman. Another comeback victory by the Bears. What is this, number 4 or number 5 on the season? I'm not really sure. This game again comes down to the last few seconds and a Cairo Santos game-winning 48-yard field goal. I saw a video in which Ben Johnson gave Cairo Santos a game ball for that game-winning field goal. I don't agree with it. And we'll get into that a little bit later. All right. So he does seal the 19-17 victory over the rival Minnesota Vikings. What a game. And the Vikings came in at 4-5. And the Bears defensively, I feel like they did a great job in the second half until that very final drive. At one point in the second half, the Bears had limited the Vikings to like 52 yards total offense or something like that. They were playing pretty well until that fourth quarter drive. You know, I do want to kind of, I'm still on the fence. I'm starting to see some things in Caleb Williams. Makes me want to get on board with this. But, and I know I've been critical of him, and I thought there were plenty of chances for the Bears and Caleb Williams offensively to pull away from the Vikings during this game. And it just didn't happen. Caleb Williams missed 50% of his throws, whether they were overthrows, underthrows, receiver drops. He was 16 of 32 for 180 yards. Had 193, but he took 2 sacks for 13 yards, 0 TD throws, 0 interceptions. He did lose a fumble that could have gone the Vikings' way if it weren't for Rome Odunze. And the thing is on that fumble, it's like he takes that handoff and he sees that immediate pressure. And I think he wants to pull that ball, but he's maybe trying to disguise it like he is going to pull, and he maybe wants to see if that defensive player's gonna ease off, and so he's hesitating, and he wants to pull it, and he doesn't really pull it, and next thing you know, boom, beep, ball's on the turf, bouncing everywhere. Rome Odunze comes in and jumps on the ball, the fumble, so he gets the fumble recovery, and I think Caleb Williams knew it wouldn't be wise to hand the ball off in that situation, tackle for loss for sure. But I think in that situation, giving the ball and letting that play develop and Swift just being tackled right there for a loss, probably better than you possibly losing the fumble. Thank goodness for Rome Odunze. DeAndre Swift, he had another good running game performance, 21 carries on 90 yards. Rome Odunze had only 2 catches, 41 yards, 6 targets. 4 of those misses that we had that we talked about Caleb missing, 4 of those were to Rome Odunze. Cole Kmet, the only receiver to catch, pull in and grab and snag all of his targets. 5 targets, 5 catches, 45 yards. Luther Burden III starting to get more playing time after the Zacchaeus debacle. 3 catches, 27 yards on 5 targets, so he's getting more time because of all the drops from Olamide Zacchaeus. Kevin Byard had a nice pick with the return of 23 yards, and Naishon Wright had a beautiful pick in the end zone, ending a Vikings drive. Good to see Naishon Wright kind of getting his game back. He dedicated that to his former coach, John Beam, who tragically shot and killed earlier in the week, last week. And that was a good thing by Naishon Wright to see that. Kevin Byard, I think, is leading the league in interceptions with 5. In fact, 3 Bears defenders are the top 4 in interceptions this season. Kevin Byard with 5, Tremaine Edmonds with 4 and Naishon Wright with 4. Unfortunately, Tremaine Edmonds is going to be out for the next 4 games. The Bears had to put him on the injured list. So looks like he's going to be missing 4 games, got a quad injury or something like that. No Kyler Gordon this week versus the Steelers. No Jalen Johnson. TJ Edwards is still out. Not sure if Noah Sewell is going to be able to go today. He may be on the injury report. Doesn't really give it to me here on the Bears website. I didn't really look that up. I do know Tremaine Edmonds. I think they were talking about Noah Sewell. Oh, Theo Benedette was kind of questionable Friday for their workout, so he may not go. They did promote somebody off of the practice squad to be limited. Ozzie Trapillo may get the start versus the Steelers at left tackle, and then they would have a limited, depleted backup on the offensive line. So we're going to have to see how the game against the Steelers plays out. No sacks on the day versus the Vikings. Okay. Part of me wants to say not a big deal, but that kind of is a big deal. That still tells me you're not getting consistent pressure up front. Bears just don't have those beasts on the edge, you know. This to me was just an average blog game all the way around by both teams. The Vikings had a chance to even their record to 5-5. They take the lead late on that fourth quarter drive. Thank goodness Devin Duvernay returns that kick 56 yards and puts the Bears in field goal position to win the game. However, why I don't agree with Cairo Santos getting a game ball, if he makes the other 45-yarder that he missed in the fourth quarter, you're not even in that position. At that point, the Vikings would probably have to try an onside kick, because after that fourth quarter touchdown, the game would have already been 19-17. So we probably would have seen an onside kick, see how that plays out there. 50 seconds left to go in the game. If the Vikings recover it, does the Bears secondary, does the Bears defense hold them there for that victory? Don't have to worry about it. Things played out a little bit differently. That kickoff return by Duvernay, again, it was really close to field goal range when he was forced out of bounds. But then a couple of plays later, the Bears sealed it. They got Santos to within his distance, 48-yarder. Looked like it was going to be no good, man. It was tailing to the left, and it just snuck into that upright, and that was a good for a game winner for the Bears. Like I said, another comeback victory. You know, on that last drive, Bears played it safe. Couple of run plays, get you 8-9 yards, get you closer in the field goal position. I think, and maybe you don't do this because you got a rookie head coach and you got a second-year quarterback in the league. I think maybe if you have a more seasoned quarterback, that instance when you've got the ball, 40 seconds left to go in the game, I think something I would have liked to have seen where you have plays drawn up to where, you know, you tell the quarterback, receiver, look, we're going corner of the end zone. This ball's going to be placed in a position where only my guy can get it. If he can't get it, we're not going to risk the interception, the turnover. But I also understand that's why you play it safe and run the ball up the middle, kind of get it to the right hash mark for Cairo Santos. And then you don't have to put your kicker. Maybe you get that touchdown. I don't know. But the Bears won the game. I'm not going to sit here and second guess it. It's just something I would have liked to have seen. I like to be aggressive, take that shot, you know, to the end zone, to the corner of the end zone. Quarterback knows if it's not there, just throw it away. But again, you needed those probably 5 or 6 yards that you picked up running the ball conservatively to get Cairo Santos into his range. But again, with the conservative runs, Swift could have broke one of those and took it to the house and, you know, could have had the touchdown there again anyway. So the run's not bad, playing it conservatively, get the field goal, walk out of there with a victory. I'm really starting to like what Kyle Monangai brings to the table for the Chicago Bears. He only had 12 carries for 23 yards against the Vikings, but a very key first down. I think he picked up 5 or 6 yards to get the Bears to the 1-yard line. First down, the very next play, boom, into the end zone. Kyle Monangai, TD. He's a bruising running back. He's picking up those yards. He's a nice compliment to DeAndre Swift right now that DeAndre Swift is racking up and averaging kind of like 70 to 90 yards a game. But between the two, Swift's 90 yards, Monangai's 23. That's 113 yards on the day. Not bad. Not a bad deal that you're asking your offensive line, and this line is still continuing to kind of gel and work well together. Hopefully Benedette can go today. If not, we'll see what Ozzie Trapilo brings to the table. He'd been being brought in the last couple of games as like in certain packages where they want a sixth offensive lineman in there. Trapillo's been coming in and checking into games, and he's been impressing the Bears. He's been impressing me. So I can't wait to see what he brings. And again, Monangai has this bruising running style, a nice compliment to DeAndre Swift. The offensive line continues to grind, and the Bears offense racked up a total of 140 rushing yards on 39 carries. Again, Swift had 21 carries for 90 yards. Caleb Williams added 23 yards of his own running the ball. I like to see in your offense, that's what you want to see. If your guy's not going to consistently get 100 yards a game rushing, your main running back, if he's close to that 100-yard mark, and then the team, as a team, they go over that 100-yard mark, that's good. That shows promise. That shows grit by this offensive line, that they're gelling, that they're getting things done. And I hope the hell they are gelling and working well today with all the hoo-ha and hoopla around Aaron Rodgers with that broken wrist. Wants to play one last game against the Bears. Who's your daddy type situation he's thinking here. If he does go, I like to see how this is going to work. If he's got a soft cast or a cast on that hand, if you're taking the ball under center, it doesn't matter. That's the bottom hand for a right-handed quarterback. That snap is still going to be jamming into that wrist all day long. So what kind of control is he going to have there? Is he going to have to be in the gun every single time to take the little floating snaps so that he can kind of just use that left hand as a guide hand to catch the ball, get the ball with his right hand in position to throw? We're going to have to see. If he does play, I hope the Bears take it to him. Ben Johnson said they wanted to come out this week against the Steelers and make a statement. It's not how they start, it's how they finish. And this is the toughest part of the schedule coming up for the Chicago Bears between now and the end of the season. So today is the day they need to step up and make a statement. All right, my champs or my greats and my chumps or my ain'ts. Chumps, champs, greats, ain'ts. Still don't know which way I'm going to go. Still don't know which way I'm going to go. All right, and that little song that I just put together. Hey, my champs for this game, obviously the running game all the way around, not one single player, but DeAndre Swift, 21 yards, 21 carries, 90 yards. Kyle Monangai, 12 carries, 23 yards. This also includes the O-line. Drew Dahlman graded out at 72.8. Guard Jonah Jackson graded out at 67.4. All right. So some great grades there on the offensive line. I'm including, it's the running game. That's one of my champs, the running game for the Bears versus the Vikings. I'm going to show Naishon Wright. I'm going to show the kid some love. He came back like a champ for that pick in the end zone, negating a Vikings TD drive, a Vikings drive and a possible TD. And I'm going with honorable mention on champs for Kevin Byard with his 5th pick of the season, which leads the NFL. Naishon Wright is tied for 2nd place with Tremaine Edmonds as a leader in the NFL in interceptions. One of my other champs this week, Cole Kmet, the only receiver to snag all 5 targets and finish the game with 5 catches, 45 yards for a 9-point-yard average. He and Colston Loveland were graded out as two of the top offensive players at 80.0 for Loveland and 79.7 for Cole Kmet. My last champ in here is Devin Duvernay for the clutch kickoff return of 56 yards at the end of the game to help seal the victory after Santos' 48-yard field goal. Now, I was going to give Caleb Williams some love for kind of controlling that game, not turning over the ball, and keeping the Bears within distance, striking distance to win that game. That's something I'm going to talk about with Caleb Williams here before we get to forgotten NFL legends. So let me get through my chumps for the game versus the Viking, or my ain'ts. That Bears 4th quarter defense, the whole gosh damn thing all the way around. You go into the 4th quarter with a 16-3 lead. You let the Vikings end up taking the lead with 50 seconds left to go. And Nick McLeod and Josh Blackwell, it was earlier in the game. He has a returner interference. That tacks on more yards for the Vikings. And I want to say it's so close to my mind that I think that happened on one of the fourth quarter touchdowns that the Vikings had. And Nick McLeod, the key 4th and 4, you had just kind of put some pressure on third down. You forced fourth down. It was 4th and 4. You, as a defensive back, you got to know that these receivers are going to set up at the sticks. They're not going to try to take the ball, break the ball downfield, turn the ball over that way. And you're playing in coverage there, and you too much of a cushion, right? You let that Vikings receiver stop his route right inside the first down yardage marker, turn and make that easy catch. That leads to the touchdown and that drive in which the Vikings end up taking the lead. That last drive led to the go-ahead TD for the Vikings. It was 17-16 at that point. All right. So that fourth quarter defense for me was a chump. I'm going to list Cairo Santos as a chump just for missing the 45-yard field goal in the fourth quarter that would have given you and the Bears the 19 points and would have forced an onside kick or something there at the end of the game because you would have already had the lead. He wouldn't have had to come back out and kick the 48-yard game winner. So that's why I had issues with Cairo Santos giving him a game ball. He's one of my chumps just for missing. And then we learned during the week that the Commanders signed Jake Moody off the Bears practice squad. Jake Moody did a great job for us, 8 of 9 in field goals for the 2 games when Santos was injured. And I have a strange feeling, the way Santos has been missing kicks lately, that this kicking game may come back to, or letting Jake Moody walk may come back to bite the Bears in the ass. All right. So, like I said, those are my chumps for the week versus the Vikings. And I was going to include Caleb Williams as a champ just to give him some props to show this time around. Look, I was never, ever at a point in my life that I was willing to give Justin Fields the benefit of the doubt. I felt from day one he wasn't the guy. He's been benched by his 3rd team now. He's got the worst record in the NFL for first 50 starts or some shit like that for a quarterback. I don't think Justin Fields will ever be an NFL quarterback. If he wants to stick to that position, he may be a suitable backup. But if the guy wants to have a great NFL career, I think he should switch to wide receiver. But I'm at this point now with Caleb Williams. I'm starting to see a little something in the guy. He's gotten, 4 or 5 comeback victories already in his short tenure with the Bears, 2nd year in the league. But what is it, as Bears fans, we don't really know what we want in a quarterback because we've never really had one. Everybody loves Jim McMahon because of the Super Bowl. We had Eric Kramer. He's the only guy to get close to 4,000 yards for the Bears. Then the Bears hitched their wagon to Jay Cutler, and then Cutler didn't pan out. We didn't ever do anything with Cutler, but there were times where Cutler's the greatest quarterback in the NFL, and then there's times like, oh, fuck, this guy sucks. Get him out of here, But there was something that I saw that Colin Cowherd said, and he does the ESPN show. I'm sure you all heard of Colin Cowherd. I never really liked the guy. I listen to him a lot, but he's one of those guys, it seems to me, that he just disagrees with people just to kind of get a rise out of them. And I haven't really listened to him here lately, but I did see a meme and a Colin Cowherd quote about Caleb Williams. And he says, right now, Caleb Williams is the most electric young player in football. He's not just playing at a high level. He's changing how we think about franchise quarterbacks. One of the most talented rookies I've ever seen. He's not a rookie right now. It's in his 2nd year, and it's not even close. Now, I don't know if Colin Cowherd said that this season, but the fact that he says talented rookies leads me to believe that he might have said this last year. I don't know when it was actually said. It was just a meme that I saw posted 2 or 3 days ago, but that got me to thinking. Change the way we think about franchise quarterbacks. What are we talking about here? Do we want a guy who's going to come in and be a stud and throw 27 of 30 for 330 yards and 2 or 3 TDs every game, but you lose as a team because you've got nothing else and you don't make the playoffs? Or do we want a kid who's going to come in and be consistent and do the small things he has to do correctly to keep your team in games so that you can find a way to win doesn't really rack up the gaudy numbers, but consistently gets you wins and consistently gets you to the playoffs with the shot at that Super Bowl title. I think it's two different types of quarterbacks we're looking at here. I mean, look at Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen, two guys people would say are two of the top quarterbacks in the league. Jackson's been hurt a little bit this year, but they've not really won anything. Neither of them won Super Bowls, but, they're scrambling. They're running out on the field. They're putting up decent numbers. More times than not, their teams are winning, and they're in that playoff hunt every year just to fall short. So if you get a quarterback who does that for you, say for the next 5 or 6 or 7 years, you keep making the playoffs, your quarterback keeps doing good things. He keeps getting victories for you, but you keep falling up short. Do we still say he's a franchise quarterback? Probably, because I think when you look at the term franchise quarterback, you got to say this is the guy who's going to lead your team for many years to come. And within that period, let's say it's a 10-year period, he gets you, maybe you get to one or two of those Super Bowls, maybe you win one of them, but he's always put you in a position to get there. Then I think if you've got a guy who's been with your team for 10 years and you keep willing to give him the extended contracts. I mean, hell, Dak in Dallas has got to be a franchise quarterback, been there for many, many, many years. Keeps falling short, doesn't win anything, but that's by definition, franchise quarterback, you want the same quarterback playing every season for the next 5 to 10 years. You don't want a different guy or draft a different guy here, draft a different guy. This guy bust. Now we don't have a quarterback. You want that consistency. It doesn't necessarily mean your franchise quarterback has to end up being the number one quarterback in all the NFL by the time his career is over. So those are some things that you just think about. We as Bear fans don't really know what we want in a franchise quarterback because we've never really seen one. Unless you're old enough to where you're talking about maybe the Bobby Douglases of the era. Eric Kramer, 4 or 5 years, 6 years with the Bears, something like that. Maybe at that point he was a franchise quarterback for us. 5 or 6 years we got from Jay Cutler. Maybe he's a franchise quarterback or considered one. So just got to keep seeing some growth and consistency out of Caleb Williams. If there are certain things pointed out to you as mistakes, then fix those and don't continue to let them happen and continue to make the growth. And I think maybe Bears fans might ease up on the kid a little bit because, like I said, I'm looking to maybe jump on this bandwagon and start getting excited about what we've got going on with our quarterback situation and the Chicago Bears. A couple of signings. The Bears signed Jalen Reeves-Maybin to the practice squad, a 6-foot linebacker, spent most of his time with Detroit. He was a second-team All-Pro and a Pro Bowler in 2023. More than likely, they just elevated Carl Jones Jr. That's a guy, they re-signed him this time. And then he's been up and down with the Bears roster over the last couple of years. But with Tremaine Edmonds being out, Carl Jones Jr. got signed to the active roster. And maybe Maybin did too because of if Noah Sewell's out, But Reeves-Maybin, 221 total tackles on his career, 1.5 sacks, 5 forced fumbles, 3 fumble recoveries. And weirdly enough, a statistic for linebacker Jalen Reeves-Maybin is somehow he's also credited with 4 rushing yards and 31 passing yards. Okie dokie. So that's it. That's our recap of the Bears Vikings. We're going to have to see what happens this week coming up later today. As now I'm recording this episode on Bears Steelers Sunday. You'll get my full recap on that next week. That leads us to Forgotten NFL Legends. This week's legend, we're going to go with the Beast. I named him the Beast. He's not Marshawn Lynch. That's beast mode. This guy was just a pure beast, but we're going with an old throwback of Marion Motley. Have you ever seen the meme of him running? He's playing for Cleveland in the all-white uniforms, and he's running. He's got some black Chuck Taylor gym shoes on. And he's out there playing in the NFL on a dirt field, running all over cats, man. Marion Motley. He was one of the first 2, let's say maybe 4 African Americans to play professional football in what is considered the modern era. He broke the color barrier along with his teammate Bill Willis in September of 1946 when both of them played their first game for the Cleveland Browns. Now, Marion Motley may have been an afterthought for the NFL. In my research, it doesn't appear as if he got drafted. He made the team, the Cleveland Browns, after being invited to a tryout by legendary coach Paul Brown. And I think Marion believes that the only reason he was invited to that tryout was because they invited Bill Willis to the same tryout and they wanted to have a roommate or something. Only two black guys, right? Only two African Americans. Maybe want to have a roommate, somebody to keep each other in line. I don't know. But at one point, Marion Motley quotes and says, "I'm glad I fooled him for that he could be in the NFL." Motley grew up in Ohio. He played football throughout high school. He goes to the University of Nevada. He plays there for a couple of years. Then he enlists in the military, United States Navy, during World War II. And during that time in the military, he plays on a team that's coached by legendary NFL coach Paul Brown. Well, after the war, Motley leaves, the military. He goes back home to Canton and he gets a job in the steel mill. And I think right away, Marion Motley's like, man, this steel mill, this shit ain't for me. I don't want to be in the steel mill here, right? So he writes to Paul Brown and says, hey, you got something there for me playing football? And he was going to go back to Reno at the U of Nevada in 46 to finish his college degree. But Paul Brown's coaching a team in the new All-America Football Conference, the AAFC, and they're called the Cleveland Browns. So Motley writes to Brown, and he's like, can I get a tryout, man? I'd love to continue playing football instead of working in the steel mill. And Brown's like, no, dude, sorry. I've got all the fullbacks that I need. Don't need you. Sorry. So, man, now Marion Motley's hanging his head. He's going back to the steel mill, probably clocking in on Monday morning, afternoon, night. Who knows what shift he's working, right? Well, at the beginning of August, Paul Brown has a change of heart. He invites Bill Willis, the other African-American star, to try out for the team and at their training camp in Bowling Green, Ohio. And I think at that point, 10 days into training camp, this tryout, I'm thinking either Paul Brown is like, I just need somebody to come in here and kind of help Willis get to the point where we cut them both, or Willis is going to make the team. So maybe now he needs known at this point, it's 1946, right? Maybe none of the white guys want a room with Bill Willis. So Paul Brown then invites Marion Motley to come to a tryout, right? And even Motley says, I think they felt Willis needed a roommate or something like that. He goes, I don't really think they thought I'd actually make the team. I'm glad I was able to fool them. So both Motley and Willis make the team. They become two of the first four African Americans to play professional football in the modern era. At that time, the Los Angeles Rams of the National Football League had signed the only other two black players in pro football, Kenny Washington and Woody Strode. Between the four dudes, Washington, Strode, Willis, and Motley, the four men break football's color barrier 7 months before Jackie Robinson was promoted from Class AAA Montreal to join the Brooklyn Dodgers in 1947. So we have Jackie Robinson breaking the color barrier in Major League Baseball. We have Kenny Washington, Woody Strode, Bill Willis, and Marion Motley breaking the color barrier in the AAFC/NFL, because after 4 dominant seasons in the AAFC, that league kind of folds. The Cleveland Browns, we know it, right? We know. They've had 2 separate franchises in Cleveland named the Browns. And we know they're in the NFL, right? And Motley wanted that tryout because he thought it was only opportunity to play professional football. No record of him getting drafted. Nobody drafted him. He had to beg to get to where he was in the NFL. And he felt it was his one big chance to rise above the steel mill. All right. So he did. The AAFC Cleveland Browns would win 4 championships with Marion Motley, and then the league would fold. The Browns would be absorbed into the NFL, and Motley continues his success playing football for the Cleveland Browns. Marion Motley plays 9 seasons, mostly with Cleveland, and 1 year he attempted a comeback in Pittsburgh. He had 4,720 career rushing yards on 828 attempts with 31 TDs, 85 receptions for 1,107 yards with 7 TDs. That's this week's Forgotten NFL Legend on the Shawn Mackey Show in Motley. I'm out, everybody. That's all the time I got for today. Peace. Hey, if I made you laugh, made you think, or even made you smile, please tell all your friends. If I didn't, just keep that shit to yourself. Thanks for listening to the Shawn Mackey Show.